My irresponsible sisters convinced their 10-year-old kids to destroy my phone, but their plan backfired disastrously. The incident led to serious legal consequences when my nieces failed to push me into a pool and ended up falling in themselves. Amid laughter from other guests, my sisters, who were heavily intoxicated, reacted with panic. Since I wasn't in swimwear, I stepped away while others rescued the kids. Amidst their drunken screeching, my sisters blamed everyone, including me, for spoiling their fun. Their children had recorded the incident using their parents' phones. Now lost in the pool, attempts to retrieve the phones failed due to one brother-in-law's inability to swim. After a heated exchange, my wife and I left, leaving the party in chaos. One brother-in-law, in his drunken state, injured himself and needed stitches, causing further tension. Later, my sisters and their husbands sent hurtful messages about us, prompting my parents' disappointment. They insisted. The day after the incident, my sisters and brothers-in-law visited without their kids to discuss and set ground rules. There was a lackluster apology from my nieces, and believing things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I received a text from one brother-in-law demanding $750 for the phones. I responded by refusing and forwarded his message to my parents, declaring we were cutting off contact with my sisters and their spouses. I blocked them again. Dad intervened, calling them to express his outrage. Among other things, he banned their kids from visiting indefinitely and revoked their access to our vacation house, revealing that my wife and I actually own it. This shocked them as they often used the house and even rented it out without our knowledge, thinking it belonged to our parents. A few days later, they showed up at our house unannounced to apologize, but we weren't home. As tensions escalated, I learned my oldest sister and her family were in severe financial trouble, despite believing our parents were wealthy and would support them. They had maxed out credit cards and faced car repossession. She had been secretly renting out our vacation house to make ends meet, a revelation that left her scrambling after being cut off. Mom learned about their financial woes when she asked for a loan, realizing they had misunderstood our parents' financial situation. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd like to adjust or focus on. My sisters, each trying to guilt trip me into letting them use the vacation home again. They waited outside my house until I arrived, forcing me to choose between a public confrontation or inviting them in. Reluctantly, I let them in and listened to their excuses, supported by my younger sister. They demanded immediate access to the vacation home, accused me of being a bad brother, and even insisted I pay for their kids' college tuition because that's what family does. Knowing the truth from our parents, I confronted them, leading to a heated argument with denial, tears, curses, and yelling. It left me shaken for days. They finally left after an hour, but the harassment continued with my wife blocking their new phone numbers the next day. Fed up, my parents then handed over full responsibility for the vacation home to me, washing their hands of the situation. Determined to secure the property, I immediately drove up there, padlocking the entrance gate with a heavy-duty chain and the best lock available. Only my wife and I have keys now. I also reset all door keypads, installed security cameras with a panoramic view, and secured the water supply with a lockout mechanism. Despite these measures, I received separate calls at work a few days later from both sisters, and to implement additional security measures. During this time, my parents informed me that my oldest sister and her husband, facing financial difficulties, were getting out of their leases and selling their possessions, including their jet skis. This sudden change was tough on my sister, known for her lavish lifestyle. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law, deeply attached to his truck, faced the prospect of downsizing. Then, things took a drastic turn. Both brothers-in-law made a reckless decision that shattered their lives and those of my sisters. They broke into my vacation home and were promptly arrested for breaking and entering, property damage, and making threats. Refusing to drop the charges, I learned the full extent of their actions the following day. They had used an angle grinder to cut through the gate's chain, damaged the gate itself, and forced entry through multiple doors, causing significant damage. Sheriff's deputies apprehended them after my property manager, David, alerted law enforcement upon seeing their unauthorized entry via security cameras. Despite their attempts to explain away their actions, they were booked on serious charges, exacerbating their predicament. Their subsequent calls from jail to their wives and my parents only escalated the situation. My older sister lacked funds to bail them out, leaving my middle sister to shoulder the financial burden. That Friday ended with me firmly instructing the sheriff's department to pursue the charges. On Saturday, I informed my distraught parents, who had been pressured by my sisters to persuade me into dropping the charges, a request I firmly rejected until I consulted with legal counsel and received full restitution for the damages. Feeling torn by my mother's emotional reaction, my father suggested a fresh start, but insisted they take responsibility for the damages. Determined to protect my property, I initiated contact with attorneys recommended by friends, seeking advice on pursuing legal action against my siblings and their spouses. The following week, a courier delivered an envelope to my office containing a signed letter from both brothers-in-law and a cashier's check for $5,000. Their letter included a heartfelt apology, admitting fault, offering to cover damages, and pledging to stay away from the vacation home unless invited. They urgently requested dropping the charges to avoid job loss and agreed to any legal measures necessary. This unexpected turn shocked me, as it was a complete reversal from their previous behavior. I canceled my attorney appointment to consider their offer. Instead, I consulted with the attorney who recommended negotiating a settlement and mutual release with all parties involved. He advised that while a lawsuit could yield a favorable outcome, it would be costly and time-consuming. He is currently drafting the agreement, including provisions akin to a civil restraining order, and urged us to preserve the $5,000 pending resolution. After meeting with my attorney, we moved swiftly to assess the damage and finalize negotiations. Estimates indicated repairs would cost around $4,000, primarily for the front door. By Friday, my attorney had contacted each brother-in-law, advising them to seek legal counsel. They conceded they couldn't afford both legal fees and restitution, opting to cover damages in hopes of resolving the charges. My attorney also reached out to the DA's office, anticipating charges might be dropped given the restitution and lack of prior offenses. The following week, a surprising turn, both brothers-in-law sent a signed letter and a $5,000 cashier's check, expressing sincere apologies and a desire to avoid further legal repercussions. Their unexpected apology was a significant moment for me, reflecting a shift in their stance. Despite the monetary aspect feeling secondary, accepting the check was a practical step forward. I met with my attorney to finalize a settlement agreement, which included a provision for them to cover my legal fees. Despite their initial resistance, they relented under the threat of potential litigation for damages incurred from renting out the property, repairs, emotional distress, and legal fees. During the tense signing of the agreement, my middle brother-in-law took charge, maintaining a frosty atmosphere. They provided a $2,500 cashier's check as final payment, which we accepted to conclude the matter. The signing was terse but managed without incident. I visited the vacation home to inspect the damage and later met with the DA's office. They agreed to drop all charges except for trespassing, a Class 2 misdemeanor, with a fine to be determined upon pleading guilty. This resolution hinged on their compliance with the terms, including strict no-contact provisions and abstaining from further legal trouble. Grateful to law enforcement for their swift response, I expressed my thanks at the sheriff's office and attempted to meet with David, my property manager. With the agreement soon to be signed, I'm relieved to move past this ordeal, although legally bound to refrain from discussing specifics. Today, my wife and I will sign the agreement, marking the conclusion of this challenging chapter. While I can't delve into details, I'm grateful for the support and clarity gained throughout this process.